Justin Fields, no doubt, wants Jaxon Smith-Njigba. We break down how the Bears can make that happen next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Joining me, as always, Mr. Johnny PayPal. Make sure to like and subscribe out there, and also tune in Thursdays and Sundays, 7:30. We go live with this show. Make sure to also download it everywhere you get your podcast. Mr. Johnny PayPal, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing okay, Brad. I'm not too good at Madden anymore, and it's pretty sad. Yeah. If anyone doesn't know, Johnny PayPal, that was my gamer tag for Xbox. I used to play Madden on my esports team in college, and I used to be pretty good. I would come second place, third place for all these things, and I have been getting absolutely smoked on this new Madden, and it frustrates the heck out of me. But I'm having fun. I have a franchise. I set up. I'm with like 30 other people, so I'm the Seahawks, and it's pretty fun. But I stink.
Isn't that crazy though? Like with Madden, it's the same freaking game, but not really. Like,
yeah,
the play mechanics are always different every single year. But yeah, I just hope that one year they go back to the olden days. Like, it might be a fun off-season conversation for us to have where we literally just break down all the features that they took away in Madden. Has nothing to do with the Bears, but just gripe about how Madden took everything away and they had all these amazing features, but they took that away. But
yeah, hey, everyone loves Justin Fields is like everyone's favorite quarterback in that game because he's super fast. So hey, like Madden, you can hate about Madden just like not telling people are the best or whatever, but hey, that's accurate right there. Justin Fields, quarterback.
You better believe it. So today, speaking of Justin Fields, PayPal, this is actually your idea. You are a big Part of My Take fan, and you texted me saying, hey, did you hear the news? I'll actually let you break down what happened to the people so that they can kind of get caught up to speed about what we're really talking about today.
Yeah. Part of My Take. I mean, my favorite podcast. I mean, there's no other podcast besides us, Brad. So don't even mention the name. Yeah, no free advertisements around here. But yes, it's on Part of My Take. They interviewed Justin Fields. I mean, he's been doing great first off with his whole, his tour of going to all these places and finally getting into the media. Like, he's actually having some fun. But basically they were joking around like, hey, like if you were the GM of the Bears, what would you do with the first round pick? And one of the first things he said was to pick. The only guy he mentioned was to draft Jaxon Smith-Njigba. So I think calling him out was just his way of being like, hey, like Ryan Poles, like get my guy.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Like he did mention later, like let's get some defensive linemen if we don't, if we can. But his main thing was like, if we somehow can get him, let's get him. So that's what we're doing here right now.
Yeah. So PayPal texts me and it's like, okay, we had another show planned and we're like, let's just go through this because what we're going to be doing today is I actually have 3 mock drafts that I went through before, and there's 3 different strategies of how to get Jaxon Smith-Njigba. We're also going to break down Jaxon Smith-Njigba and just kind of talk about what is he as a prospect, where can you draft him, and also what are some of the red flags and what are some of, I guess, the green flags with his game. So let's actually go right into it then, because we know that QB1 wants him. So hopefully this can be a good player for him. So let's just break down Jaxon Smith-Njigba, what's out there. So let's see. So Jaxon Smith-Njigba, a little bit about him. Wide receiver out of Ohio State, as we know. Came out his junior year, 6'1", 200 pounds. So the comp that I have for him is Robert Woods. Big reason, very, very strong route runner. He is a route runner, technician, QB's best friend, essentially. His biggest weakness is his top end speed. There's a lack of top end speed to his game, which scares a lot of teams off because you're not seeing him blow by players. The way that he makes his separation is just with being a route running technician, a former 5-star recruit, and really only had 1 year of production in 2021. He was out practically all last year with a hamstring injury, but he did set the Big Ten receiving record in 2021 with 1,606 yards, playing 83.6% of that out of the slot. And honestly, my favorite stat, 81.95% completion when targeted. It was almost 85% in 2021. It was like 95 completions to 110 targets. It's
Mm-hmm.
insane. And that's where, as you probably know, that's a big reason why Justin Fields wants him. Very reliable target, good route runner. But PayPal, what's your feeling about Jaxon Smith-Njigba when you watch this
Yeah.
tape?
Yeah, that's the thing. There's nothing like it's not he's physically dominant over these players. Like he's not a DK Metcalf where he's mossing all these people and he doesn't have this insane highlight reel. It's honestly, I don't want to say boring, but it's just like he's just creates separation. Like I watched there was this one route where it's not really anything special. Like he just runs, straight, but the way he does it, he turns around the defender and just by doing a little bit of hesitation, but he's still moving forward, he creates like 5 yards of separation just by doing that. And you're just like, he just ran straight. But if you look closely, he has all these techniques and he's just so smart when he's playing. Like instead of running in front of a linebacker, he'll run behind them for, a crossing route. And there's just those little things like that where he'll like stop in a zone spot, like he won't keep going on his route, where I could see why he's, quarterback's best friend because he's so smart and no wonder Justin Fields wants him because he's this insane route runner and a quarterback's best friend.
He's also, like you were kind of talking about it, he's a zone, like he understands the zone. And
Mhm.
like Travis Kelce, Super Bowl champion, 2-time Super Bowl champion Travis Kelce, tight end, different position. But the reason why Mahomes loves him so much is he understands how to beat zones. That's what Smith-Njigba knows. He knows where to be. He knows where to sit. Very good route runner. And yeah, like when you talked about the lack of kind of highlight film plays, he can still like break tackles. It's the way
Yeah.
I would describe it too is he's very like, how basketball players can play above the rim. He doesn't,
Mhm.
he's not going to win like jump balls. He's very like he has some on tape and he can make contested catches. He's good when the ball's in the air, but he's not going to like jump up and moss someone.
Yep.
And that's where he reminds me so much of Robert Woods because he's like his feet are on the ground. He's going to make people miss. He's going to run routes, but he's not mossing people. He's not blowing by people with the 40 time. That's a big piece. So, but
Yep.
I think also he averaged 192 receiving yards per game in 2021.
That's
Like, just,
insane.
like he's insane. It just and so let's actually just talk about where he's going to go because Tiff Tiff's asking this question out here too. Do you think Jaxon Smith-Njigba will be available in the second round so the Bears can draft him?
Yeah.
That
I don't think he is, Brad, personally. I mean, I think his draft stock has been kinda it's gone down just because he missed an entire season with his hamstring, but the talent's still there, and like you said, his production was insane in 2021.
Yeah, and J-Rock said this in the comments. He likes Jackson Smith-Njigba, but won't run a high 40 time. And
Mhm.
he brings up a good point. I think that the combine is going to be so interesting for him because, like we said, number one weakness is his top end speed. And I think about Chris Olave. Some people were saying he didn't have that next gear, right? And Smith-Njigba was definitely not as fast as Olave. But if Njigba can run a good 40 time, does that make a lot of people not that scared off by him? but also he really does need a good combine because of missing practically the entire 2022 season and only having one good season on tape.
Mhm.
So going back to Tiff's question about the second round, I hate saying this, but you might have a chance if the Bears still had their second round pick, right? That they
Yep.
traded for Chase Claypool, because then maybe Smith-Njigba doesn't have a good combine. Maybe they don't like his measurables. He doesn't look good in some of the drills. He starts dropping. But I feel like since the beginning of the draft process to today, he's always going at the 20th pick. And I looked at mock draft database. The average pick that he normally goes is number 22 to, I believe, the Baltimore Ravens is typically where he's getting drafted. But really, that 20th pick seems to be where he's kind of being picked off. But
Mhm.
yeah, we got to see what the draft process goes. But right now, if the Bears were to try and get him, getting a pick in the teens would most likely land them Jaxon Smith-Njigba.
Yeah, I think that it's having this first round pick. It's gonna be, I don't want to say easy to get him, but we're available to get him, and if we can find the right trades, as we'll go through next, in our next little segment. But it seems like we can get him, by trading with multiple teams or just a single team in the draft.
Yeah. So let's go through some mock drafts. I think this is still, it's to me, it's not the heart of mock draft season, but this is what the people want. The people want mock drafts. We have 3 mock drafts for you. But before we go into that, it's still betting season, even though NFL season has been completed. And the best spot to bet, betus.com. Promo code unbearable to get 125% back on your first deposit. Free money right there for your free plays. Make sure to use betus.com. Link down in the description as well if you want to go straight out there. But let's go into the mock draft. So, like I said, I have 3 different ways. My favorite one is the end, and that's not just a teaser so that people listen to the end. Like legit, it's my favorite, most interesting one at the very end. But let's go to the most vanilla out there. And I want to also phrase this as well, because I also hate it when people do mock drafts because they always like they just screw over
Yeah.
whatever team they're drafting against type of thing, or like whoever they're trading to, they just completely screw them over. So I'm using PFF's mock draft machine. Also, every trade that we did is exactly 50% acceptance, 50% denial. So in that machine, it's literally like 50-50. It could go either way. So if anybody doesn't like some of these trades, bring it up to PFF, not me, because I literally was like, what can we do that's exactly 50%? So it seems very reasonable. Even though that Adam Schefter, I actually don't know if you heard this, PayPal, Adam Schefter is saying people are going crazy to try and move up. So the Bears are going to get a
Yeah.
ransom. But for this, we're not going to do that. We're just going to simply get some of these, get that 50-50. So this first trade, the first thing that I did, like I said, I traded back. And this scenario is I just wanted to see what would happen if we did one trade back. So we just try and trade back once to get down to the teens. So what came up was the Washington Commanders. They're in need of a quarterback. So what the mock draft machine said was a fair deal was we got the number 16 pick, we got the number 47th pick, and the number 97th pick in this year's draft. And then we got their first, second, and fourth round picks for the next 2 years. So they graded that as an A+ trade. Yeah, not bad. But we're trading a lot farther down, right? Because the goal of this is to get Jaxon Smith-Njigba no matter what, so our quarterback's happy. So, like we said, he's going around the 20s. We end up picking him up at the 16th pick. So we pick up Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Then in the second round, pick number 47, someone who we've talked about a lot on this show, center out of Minnesota, John Michael Schmitz, arguably the best center in the draft. Move over Musty, move over Lucas Patrick.
Thank God.
We have our center of the future. Then next, second pick in our number 54 pick, we draft running back Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama, a speedster with great receiving skills, some question on his size, but a very fast running back, perfect for Justin Fields. Also, PayPal, this is kind of the mock draft because with the 64th pick in the draft, I end up picking up Keanu Benton, defensive tackle out of Wisconsin, big boy, strong in the interior. And also, last but not least, we already drafted a wide receiver, but I was like, I got to draft him because he's your boy. Wide receiver Cedric Tillman out of Tennessee with the 97th pick overall. Big body, think Alshon Jeffrey, that can play out there. We're getting good weapons around Justin Fields. Some might be questioning, why don't I draft a lot of defense? For one, I also want every draft you'll see has different people that we're drafting. And two, there actually wasn't a lot of good defensive talent. A lot of them in my drafts were taken off. So Justin Fields, though, happy as heck. PayPal, what do you think about this mock draft?
Yeah, I like it. I think this was kind of an example of if, Njigba, I'm just going to call him Jackson from now on. I'm not even going to try, or, Jaxon Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. I think this is an example of, if the combine does go well with him, this is definitely what we'll need to do is get the 16th pick. Cause yeah, like you've been saying, he's been going kind of early 20s, like 20th, 24th, whatever. So love the pick. And I do think this will help Justin Fields all around. I mean, the two main problems of this offense I think would be completely eliminated right out the gate. I mean, you get one of the best centers out there and replace Musty and Lucas Patrick, who just completely underdelivered this season. And Jaxon Smith-Njigba, I still think even though he's quote unquote smaller, I mean, this is how the league is now. You just need a smart, good route runner as a receiver. And unfortunately, Darnell Mooney he's kind of that type of person, but I don't think Justin Fields has that connection with him. He doesn't have that special connection. I think with Jaxon, we'll get that. And yeah.
Yeah. And the more that I read about Jaxon Smith-Njigba, it's really like he's a quarterback's best friend. They're like, him and the quarterback are going to be best friends. And also, he is 6'1". That's the same height as I think Andre Johnson was literally 6'1" or like 6'2".
Yeah.
So still pretty tall. PFF gave this an A. Chat, what do you think? Are you giving this an A as well? Because I kind of like this because we get Smith-Njigba, we get the center that kind of solidifies it. We get a running back in Jahmyr Gibbs. Keanu Benton can hold down the D tackle spot, and Cedric Tillman just really kind of gives some extra depth at wide receiver. But then we have a first round pick, we have a first round pick for next year, an extra one the year after, and 2 seconds out there in 2024, a second in 2024, a second in 2025, and a fourth in 2024, and a fourth in 2025. All around, pretty good, right?
Hey, and I think this is, especially if we're able to get a lot of defensive players, which they are available in free agency. I think this is a perfect draft in that type of scenario because there's not many offensive guys that I like, especially at receiver. There's tackles out there and stuff, but this would be perfect if we just get a lot of defense in free agency.
For sure. So let's go to my second mock draft. Like we said, again, another different scenario. This scenario is, I don't know where we're at. I don't know where Don Burr is at, but this is the Lions are desperate for a quarterback. I call this the double first round scenario, where this could be the Lions. This could be the Seahawks. I don't think that the Seahawks are going to move away from Geno Smith, but this is where the Bears end up getting 2 first round draft picks because the first trade is the Bears trade picks number 1 and our 7th round pick 220 for the 6th round pick. For the 6th pick in the draft, the 18th pick in the draft, and a 5th rounder, 154. And then in the next years, we have their 1st and 2nd round picks. Like we said before, We made sure that this was an even trade, 50-50 from the PFF one. So it was seen as an even trade on both sides. And again, not trying to screw anyone over here, but it's a decent trade. You don't get as much draft capital, but you do have two first round picks. And so with the 6th pick in the draft, we are taking cornerback out of Illinois, Devon Witherspoon. And for those that love Tyree Wilson, I know there's a lot of people that watch this. Tyree Wilson was gone with the 5th pick in the draft. Devon Witherspoon, what I could tell you about him, an absolute dog at the cornerback position. He only allowed, I think, 34.5% in coverage last year.
Wow.
Phenomenal man coverage guy. Only really 1 year of production, which kind of scares some people off, but still an absolute dog out there. And a big reason why you take a man prospect, some people say you take the person who's good at man-to-man, because in its essence, coverage is just sticking to your player. The other person that I was thinking about getting was Christian Gonzalez. I think he's more of a scheme fit, but I had to go Illinois with it. And then the Bears end up picking Jaxon Smith-Njigba. No surprise here at pick 18. And then in the 2nd round, pick 54, the Bears end up going Keon White out of Georgia Tech. A little bit about him, 6'5", 286, an absolute behemoth at the defensive end spot, kind of a tweener in between defensive tackle and defensive end. And at the last pick, our 3rd pick in the draft, the Bears end up picking, we had to go Wisconsin. At pick 64, like I said, I like throwing in people that we haven't necessarily talked about. Joe Tippmann, who's been flying up a lot of draft boards, center out of Wisconsin. And the big thing about him, not a lot of people know too much about him. He is 6'6", and let me just pull this up. Or Tippmann, he is 6'6", 317, and his biggest perk is speed. He is a very fast center. A lot of people are saying, put him at guard, because he's going to be a freak of nature when he's pulling. So a very good, fast, quick offensive lineman. The Bears love that with Braxton Jones. I could see them falling in love with Tippmann at that center position to really upgrade that. But what do we think? How are we feeling? And also right on cue, Don Burr. This is a trade that the Lions traded up. We'll see what he thinks. But yeah,
hey,
what do you think,
Joe
PayPal?
Tippmann, just by the looks of him, I mean, greasy fellow from Wisconsin. I mean, how can he not be good at being an offensive lineman? I mean, just looking at him, I know he's already gonna be a Pro Bowler in 2 years. But another good draft, I think. Devon Witherspoon. I think one thing I guess I don't like is just having. I just don't like rookie corners, and maybe that's just me, Brad. I just don't like rookie corners. It's just, I feel like they have to adjust, and especially seeing how Kyler Gordon got adjusted to the game last year, it was like I always kind of like drafting him, even though Sauce Gardner obviously was pretty saucy this year. But yeah, this getting Joe Tippmann a little bit later, so we don't have to get use a 2nd round pick. And then Keon White, I haven't heard of him actually. Sounds like a beast, so I'm all for it.
And also Keon White, very good player out of the Senior Bowl. We know that the Bears like to draft people out of the Senior Bowl. He was someone who impressed and then ended up not playing and participating. He's also one of those older players too. I think he was a 6-year senior, and it also started out, I believe, at Old Dominion as a tight end, and then eventually moved over to defensive end, where he found his home. So the Bears like drafting defensive ends that didn't originally play defensive end, but PFF gives this an A+. Also, J-Rock saying, I want Kalijah Cansey. I don't know if you've seen Kalijah Cansey, PayPal, but he looks a lot like Aaron Donald coming out. He does not like to get blocked. Shorter guy. The combine is going to be crazy for him because he just gets sacks. Like, he is incredible, but it's his size. That's the biggest question mark. But he can get low. He's a very his tape's fun. We gotta watch that sometime. His tape is fun. Bears Bones likes this draft. Yeah, it's simple. It gives the Bears two first rounders. That was really the goal with this kind of exercise. But still, the Bears come away with a first rounder and a second rounder next year. And also they get Devon Witherspoon out of Illinois, the corner, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Keon White, the edge, and Joe Tippmann, the center out of Wisconsin. Let's go over to my last one. Like I said, this one's my favorite because it's really interesting. And also, it's got to be one of the more realistic ones, I'd say, because there's been some talk in the chat about Jim Irsay with all the drugs he does. Is he going to be trading with the Bears? Is he serious? What's going on? In this next one, this is my 2 trade back mock draft. And this I feel is kind of realistic because someone up top is going to want to get that number 1 pick. They want their quarterback, and then the Bears will probably want to trade down again. So let's break this down. So the first trade that we have is the Bears trade the first pick in the draft to the Indianapolis Colts for the 4th pick in the draft, the 35th pick in the draft, and the 79th pick in the draft. And also the Bears get the Colts' first round pick next year and their second round pick next year. So kind of similar to what we saw with the Lions, except we're not getting that kind of extra first round, but we're still getting a second and a third. Then the Bucs are on the phone, and the Bucs are saying, yeah, we just lost the GOAT. We need another quarterback. So they're trading up to get, I believe it was CJ Stroud. And what we traded was the 4th pick in the draft and a 5th rounder next year for the 19th pick in the draft, their second round pick, which is the 50th pick, and the 82nd pick in the draft, and a first round next year. So right now, next year, we'll have 2 first rounders and a second round draft pick. So also, here's the big thing. We have so many draft picks in the second and the third round.
Yeah.
We have 3 in the second and 3 in the third round. This is where it gets fun. And honestly, I could do this draft over and over and over again. This was so much fun because obviously with the 19th pick, we got Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Then with the 35th pick in the draft, we went best player available. Osiris Torrance, the guard from Florida, fell to the Bears. That is the best guard in the draft. And to me, after I drafted him, I'm like, well, where is he going to play? But he could play left guard, and maybe you move Cody Whitehair to the interior. Maybe you see what you can do, shift the line around, but you go best player available. Like, he's clearly the best guard, plug and play. But then next, with the 50th pick in the draft, we get edge Felix Anudike Uzoma. I practice that name, but it's always so hard to say, out of Kansas State. Elite bend. He's gotten over 20 sacks in the past 2 seasons. Very good defensive end prospect. Then with pick 54, we get cornerback Garrett Williams out of Syracuse, a very good athlete at the corner position. I believe about 6'2", and also had a ACL injury in 2022. So that's why you're seeing him kind of drop. A lot of people really like him at that corner position. Then with the 64th pick, we're drafting linebacker Jack Campbell out of Iowa, which to me is the perfect. I love him. He is the perfect complement to what you have with Jack Sanborn. Jack Sanborn, more aggressive and kind of can play downhill. Jack Campbell has actually gotten dinged for not being aggressive enough. He sits back. He's a very patient player. He waits for the hole to open up. I think that they could be a very good 1-2 punch, but Jack Campbell is also 6'5", and let me just load this up. 6'5", 246, an absolute hoss, and also an incredible pass coverage guy. Only allowed 236 yards on 418 coverage snaps. Elite coverage guy at the linebacker position. Next pick, we have a lot of picks. Running back Tank Bigsby. He had about a 30% broken tackle rate at Auburn. Phenomenal break tackle guy. And a lot of people just like him, but he's had some off and on games, hence the reason why he's dropping to the third. And last but not least, I should have wrote fan of the show that watches all the time, I always see it in the comments. He's always like, Parker Washington, wide receiver out of Penn State. I'm telling you, I saw him and I'm like, I got to get him for you. And even though it's 2 wide receivers, I'm like, I have to draft Parker Washington. Parker Washington, wide receiver out of Penn State, is the last pick. And a little bit about Parker Washington. He's about 5'10, 215, and he's kind of built like a running back, and he plays wide receiver like a running back, catches the ball, breaks some tackles. And to me, I think that he's a good complement. I think he's a better complement than when we drafted Tillman in the first mock draft, because I think he's someone that, because of his shiftiness, he doesn't have to be like a true wide receiver. He can play all over the board. So that's where I think, as a whole, this kind of matches a lot of different needs out there.
Yeah.
And so, PayPal, your thoughts?
Hey, I love it. Literally, all these drafts, it's just gives us reasons of just why to ever try and use our first round pick. No matter what it is, trade back, get all these picks, because I mean, there's so much talent in the 3rd round, 2nd round, 1st round in this draft. Like, there's a lot of guys where I would be, some of these guys, a lot of these guys on this list, I'm like, I could see them starting on this team. I mean, just with the talent we don't have right now, these guys would fill a lot of gaps. And I love the Osiris Torrance pick. I mean, what the heck, going at the 35th pick? Like, how the heck did that happen? But
He's dropping. Like, I'm looking at
yeah,
his average draft position, and I think they're like, just because he's a guard, he's dropping on a lot of draft boards, or a lot of mock drafts. A lot of predictions are saying that he might even slide out of the 1st round, but
wow.
be at like top of the 2nd. But
Yeah, and
I don't buy that, but
yeah,
I'll take it.
hey, and I truly believe too that we could probably put Whitehair at center, because I just think he needs a different change of pace. I mean, left guard, he just did not seem too hot last year. Um, and having a veteran at center, I always think is a plus. I mean, you saw how Jason Kelsey did, rest in peace the Eagles, but having a veteran, knowledgeable guy at center helps a lot. So
Yeah, and yeah, it's going to be interesting. And also, I agree with Joe in the comments. He's saying Chase Brown better running back than Tank Bigsby. I'm actually not a big fan of Tank Bigsby. I have him being drafted mainly because he was just out there on it, and I was like, okay, what could the Bears do? That's really what I was going for, is just kind of drafting some of the talent that, like, whoever was kind of some of the top people. But Chase Brown out of Illinois, very interesting. He has been dropping a lot too after the Senior Bowl. He might even go in like the 4th or 5th now. And before, he was like kind of a sure slam dunk 3rd round pick.
wow.
So yeah, but this is all the mock drafts that we have out there. I'm curious to see, PayPal, what's your favorite? And those watching too, I guess, what's all of your favorite ones? So we have the one trade back that we go straight to 16 and we pick up some of these players. So the first one, we trade back once and we get the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round picks of the Commanders. Then we get their 1st, 2nd, and 4th round picks for the next 2 years. We come away with Smith-Njigba. We come away with center John Michael Schmitz out of Minnesota, running back Jahmyr Gibbs, defensive tackle Keanu Benton, and wide receiver Cedric Tillman. Then in the double 1st round, in that mock draft, we came away 6th round pick, 18th pick, and their 5th round pick, and then the Detroit Lions 1st and 2nd picks in the following season, picking up Devon Witherspoon, cornerback out of Illinois, wide receiver Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Keon White, the edge out of Georgia Tech, and center George Tittman out of Wisconsin. And last but not least, but the longest one out here, we end up getting 2 first-round picks in the next year's draft. So one from the Colts and one from the Buccaneers, and also the Colts 2nd round pick for next year. But we come away with a slew of draft picks with Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Osiris Torrance, Felix Ndiki Uzoma, the edge out of Kansas State, the cornerback Garrett Williams, linebacker Jack Campbell, running back Tank Bigsby, and wide receiver Parker Washington. PayPal, which one is your favorite?
You said it first. I love the first round, the first one that you had. What can I say? I love getting John Michael Schmitz. He's the number one center. We just got to fill that spot. Keanu Benton, it's crazy. He was projected fifth, fourth round. Now he's already up in the third round. I think he's an absolute beast. And then Cedric Tillman, I think he'll be fun. Having another Tennessee wide receiver, get that size. But the third one, I also like that you had the last one where we do get a lot of picks. So I'm kind of all over the place. I like the more pick route because there's a lot of talent out here.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The more picks I like just because you get more bites at the apple. But yeah, that first one just to see the offense with like Jahmyr Gibbs, John Michael Schmitz, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, it's like, whoo,
that'd be fun.
I want to see that. Like, and then hopefully we signed a bunch of people in free agency.
Yeah, and the defense can get revamped through free agency. So, and we would be paying our offense like nothing if we got all these guys on offense.
For sure. So that would be amazing. Thank you all for coming and watching. Hope you had a fun time. Like, it was a lot of fun putting this together. We have a lot of awesome ideas to go through too, because we have some there's actually some ways that the Bears can get number one wide receivers that we want to be breaking down. Lots of other stuff. So you want to make sure to stay tuned, want to make sure to like and subscribe out there. And also, I know there's a question out there. When is the scouting combine? That is next week, I believe.
Combine starts the 28th.
Okay, so
okay.
So
what,
2 weeks. 2 weeks from now. Yeah, I have it in the calendar, but I wasn't able to get that up. So yeah, in 2 weeks, scouting combine starts up. And yeah, we'll be previewing the scouting combine, who to watch, what to watch for as well. We'll kind of break it down because there's always a way that you should watch the scouting combine, and we will be breaking it down all right here. But thanks again, everybody. Love y'all. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we're out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and